You know, people often think when a woman walks away, she's gone for good. They say things like, she's done, or once a woman leaves, she never looks back. But I've learned something different, something quieter. Something softer but far more powerful. You see, when a woman loves, truly loves, she doesn't just show up for you. She enters you. She weaves herself into your life, into your mornings, your habits, your thoughts, your body. Into the way you now like your coffee, the music that suddenly feels like home, the scent that stays on your skin long after she's gone. And so, when she walks away, it isn't always a clean break. It's not like turning off a switch. It's more like unplugging something that had already taken root, like pulling light from a room where the sun used to live, and even in her absence, her presence doesn't just disappear, it echoes. There's a moment, a quiet one, when you're brushing your teeth, or maybe folding laundry, or sitting alone in a car waiting for a light to turn green, and something about her flickers through you. A memory, a sound, a softness. You tell yourself it's just nostalgia, that it'll pass, but it doesn't, because when a woman truly touches you, she becomes a part of your emotional architecture. You cannot go back to being untouched. She always comes back, maybe not in the way you imagined, not always through a phone call or a message or standing on your doorstep, but she returns in the way you feel the shift she caused in you. She returns in the kindness you now give more freely, the gentleness in your voice that wasn't there before, the accountability you finally learned how to carry. She comes back in the better version of you, the one she once saw, even when you couldn't. That's the thing. A woman's love doesn't die in silence. It just changes form. Sometimes her body leaves, but her soul stays woven into the fabric of your life. Sometimes she leaves to save herself, but the version of you that grew through loving her, that version remains. I once heard someone say she left and everything felt heavier, and I knew exactly what they meant, because love, when it's real, doesn't just offer company, it offers weightlessness. It makes burdens feel lighter, even when life is heavy. It creates a sanctuary inside you, and when that love is no longer beside you, the world feels colder. It's not a punishment, it's a reminder that something or someone brought out the softness in you. And now, without it, you can feel the absence in your bones. But here's what's profound. Love doesn't need to be physically present to still do its work. A woman can walk away and still be shaping you from afar. Her voice can still echo in your choices. Her laugh can still live in the corners of your home. Her standards, her wisdom, her fire, they linger, and sometimes we don't notice it until much later. One day you're in a conversation and you hear yourself say something that sounds just like her, maybe a phrase, maybe a truth she used to repeat, and it stops you. Or maybe you find yourself being more patient with someone, more forgiving, more thoughtful. And you realize you learned that from her. She's still here in a way, because love, when offered sincerely, doesn't ask to be remembered. It teaches you how to remember yourself. And that is why women come back. Not always through the front door, sometimes through the cracks in your own growth, sometimes through the mirror you're now brave enough to look into, sometimes through the peace you only recently made with your past. She comes back in ways you never expected, in ways no one else sees, but you feel it, deep in your chest, like a thread pulling gently, not to bring her back, but to bring you forward. And here's what many people miss. Sometimes the return is not just for you. Sometimes she returns because there's still something she left behind in herself. Sometimes she circles back to reclaim her own voice, her own power, her own worth. Because maybe, just maybe, in loving you, she had forgotten how to love herself. So when she returns, don't assume she's coming back for the same reasons she left. Her journey is layered. Her return may not be about you at all. It might be about her becoming whole, and yet, that doesn't make her return any less meaningful. Because even if it's not to stay, even if it's just a moment, a conversation, a glance across a room, it holds weight, because it means she's still real, still human, still healing, and you in some way were part of that. There's a tenderness in knowing that, a quiet reverence, and maybe that's what we need more of in this world, reverence for the souls who touched us, whether they stayed or not, because impact does not require permanence. Sometimes the most powerful transformations come from those who couldn't stay, but still chose to love us anyway. So when someone says she always comes back, it isn't just about romance, it's about legacy. About energy, about truth, the kind of truth that doesn't beg to be heard, it simply stays, long after the doors close, long after the words fade, long after the space between two people becomes too wide to cross again. And perhaps the deeper question isn't why she comes back, but why you can still feel her. Sit with that. Let it soften you. Let it open something. Because maybe, just maybe, you've been waiting to come back to yourself too. There's something mysterious about the way women move through the world, something sacred, not easily understood, not always seen, but deeply felt. It's in their timing, their silences, the way they leave, and more importantly, the way they return. You may have noticed this, or maybe you're just starting to. How a woman doesn't always walk in a straight line through life, through love, through healing. She doesn't move according to logic alone. She moves according to rhythm. She follows something unseen, an inner knowing, a tide, a cycle. And when you try to understand her from the outside, without feeling into that rhythm, you miss her entirely. There are moments when she's present, overflowing, radiant like sunlight in human form. She gives and gives and gives, and then one day, almost without warning, she withdraws quietly, she starts speaking less. She pulls her energy back. Maybe she's not angry, maybe there's no fight, but something in her begins to close. And if you've ever been close to a woman like this, you've felt it, the shift, the way the light dims. And often it's misunderstood. The world has taught us to look at this movement and call it drama, to label it emotional, unstable, confusing, but it's none of those things. It is ancient, it is instinct. It is wisdom, because a woman does not just give endlessly. She is not a fountain you can drink from without consequence. She is a river, and rivers flow, and then they retreat, not to punish you, but to remember themselves. When a woman loves deeply, she opens. She opens her body, her time, her thoughts. She opens spaces in her life where she had once protected herself. She allows someone to enter the places where she's tender, maybe even wounded. And if she's not careful, if the love she gives is not met with equal respect, presence, and understanding, she starts to forget that she was ever whole before. And this is where the leaving begins. It's not the loud kind of leaving. It's not slamming doors or angry speeches. It's the quiet one, the one where she slowly fades into herself, the one where she starts laughing less, responding slower, needing more time alone, not because she's giving up, but because she's trying to come back to life, because somewhere along the way she started to disappear. And most people don't notice when a woman starts to disappear. They notice when she finally leaves, but by then, she's already been gone for some time. She's been sitting with herself, asking quiet questions in the dark, listening to the version of her that she left behind in all the caring, all the tending, all the compromising. She's been wondering, where did I go, and why did I let myself go so far? And when she finally stands up and walks away, it is not to hurt you. It is not to seek revenge or teach a lesson. It is to come back to the rhythm of her own breath, the sound of her own name, the shape of her own boundaries. This is a sacred thing, but because it's sacred, it's often invisible to those who are not looking with reverence. What many people don't understand is that a woman's power lives in her ability to return, not just to people or places, but to herself. She has an incredible capacity to reawaken, to shed the layers she wore to survive and find her way back to the woman she was born to be. And when she does come back, when she steps into a space she once left, it's not always because she wants to stay. Sometimes it's because she's different now. She wants to see the world through the eyes of the woman she's become. She might still care, she might even still love you, but she is no longer the version of herself who would shrink to make you comfortable. She's no longer willing to bleed for connection. She's no longer asking for permission to feel, to speak, to walk away if she must. She's found something more precious than the desire to be chosen. She's found her own soul, and now she moves differently. Maybe you see her again. Maybe she shows up unexpectedly at a gathering or in a place you didn't expect her to be. Maybe she texts you, or maybe it's just a message through a mutual friend that she's doing well, thriving even, and for a moment something in your chest aches, not because you want to take her back necessarily, but because you realize she came back to herself without you, and that's the beauty, that's the heartbreak, that's the lesson. We are not meant to hold people forever. We are meant to hold them with care while they are with us. And when they leave, especially women like her, we are meant to honor the journey they are on, even if it no longer includes us. The feminine doesn't operate in straight lines. She circles, she spirals. She returns to old places, to old loves, to old versions of herself, but always with new eyes, always with a deeper wisdom, always with something she gathered from the places in between. This is why women always come back. Not to the past, but to their power, to the fullness of who they are, and when they do, you may find yourself remembering the version of her you once knew, and seeing her now in full bloom, unapologetic. Unafraid, you may even wonder why you didn't see it sooner, but don't let that turn to regret. Let it be reverence. Let it teach you how to recognize the cycle, how to honor the rhythm, how to create space not just for a woman to love you, but for her to remain herself inside that love. Because when a woman feels safe to stay with herself while loving you, she rarely has to leave. That is the quiet miracle. So if you've been wondering why she left, or why she came back, or why she doesn't seem the same anymore, look deeper, listen beyond her words. There's a sacred pattern at play, one that has nothing to do with rejection and everything to do with remembrance. And maybe, just maybe, you're not here to fix it. You're just here to witness it, to learn from it, to hold space for the becoming, because sometimes the most loving thing we can do is let someone return not to us, but to themselves. And if you're the woman who left, and you're listening now, this is your reminder: you are not wrong for walking away. You are not broken for needing time. You are not selfish for putting yourself first. You are the rhythm, you are the moon. You are the tide, and your return is holy. Don't rush it. Don't explain it. Don't apologize for it. Just keep coming home to yourself, because when you do, when you really do, you won't need to come back to anyone who couldn't hold your becoming. You will have already returned to the most important place of all, and that will be enough. What does it mean when we say a woman always comes back? Most people think of the physical return. They think of footsteps at the door. A message after months of silence, a familiar voice saying, "Hey, I was just thinking about you." But the truth is far more subtle, far more layered, because often, long before a woman physically returns, her impact has already found its way back into your life. You notice it in the quiet places, not when life is loud and full of people, but when the room is still and you're just sitting with yourself. You feel her in the way your thoughts pause more often now, in how you've started noticing your tone, softening your language, in the way you hold your temper a little longer, choose peace more often, walk away from what doesn't serve you instead of clinging to it out of pride. This is the secret most people never talk about, that love, when given deeply, sincerely, and without disguise, does not just visit you, it transforms you. When a woman has loved you in a way that challenged your ego, that called your spirit forward, that saw you not just for who you were, but who you could be, she doesn't disappear when she leaves. She lives on in the parts of you she touched. And that kind of imprint, that kind of energy always returns, not necessarily through a person, not even through her voice or presence, but through you, through who you're becoming, because the greatest women, the ones who loved you well, plant seeds. And sometimes those seeds don't bloom until long after she's gone, long after the texts have stopped, long after the blame has faded, long after you've stopped telling yourself stories about who was right and who was wrong. Suddenly, in the middle of a day like any other, you catch yourself doing something differently. You pause before reacting. You choose softness instead of defensiveness. You respond with truth instead of silence. And you think she would have liked that. It hits you not as regret, but as a kind of gratitude, because even if things didn't last, even if there was pain or confusion or endings you never saw coming, she gave you something, something real, something that continues to shape you, and isn't that the highest form of love? Not the one that stays because it has to, but the one that leaves something better behind. There's a kind of return that happens not in her footsteps, but in your memory. You remember the way she challenged you to speak up, not just nod along. You remember how she called out your potential, not just your flaws. You remember how she didn't shrink for you, and how, sometimes, that intimidated you. How you didn't know what to do with someone who refused to dim her light just to make you feel more in control. But now, months, maybe years later, that light has become your compass. You look back and you realize she wasn't asking too much. She was asking for presence, for honesty, for growth, and maybe you weren't ready then. Maybe part of you had to lose her to find yourself. That's not failure, that's the human path, because sometimes we don't see clearly until the absence becomes louder than the presence ever was. Sometimes her love was the mirror you weren't ready to look into, but once she left, you started to see what she saw. The tenderness beneath your armor, the vision buried beneath your distractions, the softness you thought you had to hide. You see, she always comes back not just as a person, but as a reflection, a reminder, a lesson, and sometimes the returning has nothing to do with her at all. Sometimes the return is you realizing you've become the person she once believed you could be, that you've grown into the kind of man or woman who understands her better now, who honors emotions, not avoids them, who makes space for discomfort, who knows that love isn't control, it's freedom, it's expansion, it's accountability and grace dancing together. That realization can be bittersweet. Because you want to share it with her, you want her to see that you finally get it, but sometimes it's too late to go back, and that's okay, because the point was never to chase her shadow, the point was to grow. To awaken, to evolve. Her love, even in its ending, did exactly what it came to do. There are moments when this truth feels like loss, but more often it becomes a quiet kind of peace, a knowing that love doesn't have to last to leave you changed. That presence isn't always physical, that return isn't always visible. It's in your becoming, in the way you now move through the world. And for the woman listening to this, the one who gave and left, the one who was misunderstood, who poured herself into someone who wasn't quite ready, know this: you were never wasted, even if they didn't say thank you. Even if they made you feel like too much, even if your love was met with fear instead of reverence, you planted something, and they will feel it, maybe not now, maybe not even soon, but one day. One day, they'll be sitting alone or walking through life, and they'll catch a whisper of you in their own growth. They'll recognize the shift, the gentleness, the strength, the clarity, and they'll know it came from you. You were the teacher, the mirror, the catalyst, and maybe they won't reach out. Maybe you'll never hear from them again, but you'll feel it, the quiet return, the full circle moment, the peace in knowing you never gave your love in vain. Because when love is real, it doesn't just leave, it lingers, it shapes, it returns not always in a person, but in the fruit of the seeds it once sowed, and you were the sower, you gave something pure. something healing, and that is never lost. So if you're wondering whether it mattered, it did. If you're wondering whether they'll ever see, they will. And if you're wondering why your heart still feels connected, even across time and space, it's because the work of love doesn't end with goodbye. It carries on through memory, through growth, through everything we become after we've been loved well. So yes, she comes back, but not always through the door. Sometimes she comes back through you, through who you are now, through everything you never would have become had she not loved you the way she did.